All right, thank you for staying with us. The conversation this morning, it's countdown. By the way, it's about the countdown. Just few hours away from the big day. Just as we said earlier, by the 2024 United States of America's presidential election. With the top two guys there, Donald Trump, former president, who is going to return, and of course, current Vice President Kamala Harris. It was Biden earlier, but then he stepped down for his vice Kamala Harris. And she is rather on the ballot, and then we're looking at what has been so far. And few hours again, both candidates have been making their final pitch. By the way, and Trump, held rallies in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, and Georgia. While Kamala, on the other hand, I think made a speech, canvassing for vote in Michigan. And these are some of what you are following at this time. As they say, yes, election, no two elections can exactly be the same, but then some will say there are patterns. Will these patterns prevail again? How about the policies, being canvassed by the two big wigs from the Republican part and, of course, the Democrats? We have been joined this morning by some gentlemen residing, working in God's own country. And Femi Olanipekun is a journalist and, of course, a political analyst. He joins us from Connecticut virtually this morning. Femi, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, good to have you here. And of course, we have Olusola Adewumi. He's a United Nations Association Chicago City Ambassador. He joins us from Illinois this morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Olusola.
Good morning, my brother. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And, few hours away, Donald Trump is going to return. Kamala Harris wants to succeed, her immediate boss, Joe Biden. Who will it be? How will it happen? Fingers crossed. But then we talk about this matter. Let me speak with Femi firstly, on this matter. How has it been so far? Because we know if it's Nigeria, the frenzy, everything, is it the same? The politicians will be talking big. And of course, in Nigeria, 24 hours before a major election, campaign ceases, advert closes, no campaigns, no nothing. Everybody stands down. Just go and prepare to vote. Is it the same way? Give us a sense of what is happening right now in the U.S.
Well, thank you, Femi. It's been a nail-biting, close to the election day, just some 24 hours, less than 24 hours from now.
Yeah.
In terms of the frenzies, it's been here, both candidates making last-minute speeches, last-minute stops in some of the battleground states. And, in terms of drawing parallels to Nigeria, this election cycle, especially since Donald Trump got into the stage in American politics, you've seen, lots of, violent rhetorics, on both sides, if you like. You've seen hate, you've seen some more division. America is naturally divided along left and right ideologies. But even along the lines of those ideologies, some of them have been blurred. You've had lots of Republicans crossing to the other side to support Kamala Harris because of the personality of Trump. You've seen more and more people who ordinarily are independent and even in some instances, Democrats also saying they're going to vote. I'm talking about ordinary voters. But unlike that of the Democrat, a lot of Republicans, well-established Republicans, top politicians saying they're not going to support Trump. Maybe you have the similarities like we do have in Nigeria, where you have politicians cross-carpeting, moving from one party to the other and, not adhering to their party's ideologies in terms of the build-up, not as violent as you have in Nigeria. No violence, like, except the fact that unusually we've had Donald Trump surviving two assassination attempts, in the build-up to this election. Other than that, and then you have allegations. Some of them have been proven to be conspiracy theories. Some of them have been proven not to be true, but in some other instances, there's been lots of worry for many people, many political watchers, as to some issues about election integrity, but they're not widespread as you would have in Nigeria. But generally, it's been a very frenzy build up to the election. America is on edge. You've had people repeatedly saying this is the most consequential election in American history. But then, as a journalist and as a student of political history, I've had those terms also used severally before. 8 years ago, when Donald Trump first stepped into the scene, people say that time also that was the most consequential election in American history. They're repeating the same now. People have said, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. People on the right, also the Republicans, have also said, if you allow Democrats to win this election, this country will go down the drain. Some very fearful rhetorics being pushed around all over. But you can, to a certain extent, to a large extent rather, agree that this is a very critical election in America's democratic history. The consequences, the implications will be far-reaching. And, in this conversation, I'm sure we'll talk more about what the voters are looking at and why a personality like Donald Trump has been able to garner the kind of support he's garnered. And, why even Democrats and a lot of people also outside of the world are, do I say worried, are still concerned as to why the election is neck and neck. If you check the polls, it's neck and neck. It's a two-horse race, and you can't really separate as of now. A lot of people do not know if it's going to be Kamala Harris or it's going to be Trump. Depending on which polls you're looking at, either of them can win on election day.
Right.
And I should add also that, there's been a lot of interest. Over 75 million Americans have voted already in terms of early voting and absentee voting. That's huge. That's huge. I mean, that's not a record, but then that's a huge number of Americans voting. And the turnout for this election is expected to be around, say, maybe the 60% mark.
Right. Quite, I must say, even outside of the US, many persons in Nigeria, all over the world, it's the US we're talking about, by the way. But let me come to Olusola. The mood appears to be set, both politicians talking tough in this matter. Femi reminded us of the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And of course, many of these things has been happening. Let me ask you, at your end, you're in Illinois. How has it been? The election preparation?
Well, just like Olufemi said, the election is going to definitely be very historical, and no doubt about it. The whole world is looking forward to the outcome of the election. But I listened to the first question you asked, and just like election everywhere is the same in so many ways. We are humans here. The people that are Americans, the natives, the immigrants are humans. And due to the influx of the immigrants over time, different opinion, ideologies, now the American democracy is actually changing. It's going through a lot of reformation. And to me, a lot of ideologies from both left and right is beginning to clash. That's why the coming election is neck to neck. And however way the outside world perceive it, there is a dominant narrative, which is usually pushed or moved by media, beliefs over time. So everybody have their rhetorics and belief about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. But day-to-day conversation I've been having with people, what I notice is this: it's not just going to be an election as usual for some Americans. Everybody's beginning to realize we don't need a political leader. We don't need a politician. We need a leader. And looking at the other side of the spectrum, a lot of people have beliefs about Donald Trump's character, which I believe is the major issue. But it's at a point in history that most Americans are changing views. They're not looking at one issue on top of the other. When you are given two candidates for an election, you are definitely presented two options. So you either have to make choice between the lesser evil or the better one, but that naturally control the outcome before you go to the poll. So we have both candidate. And there's been a mixed reactions and opinion about that. So on one side, people believe Kamala is coming out weak, inexperienced. The concern is about the international politics and security and border crisis. And on the other side, you have a crazy one who people believe you cannot doubt his competency, no doubt. We have dominant narrative, just like I said. I believe that Donald Trump's have stability in some key areas. The reasons why a lot of people are changing their views from the blue to red. To me, recently I've met with a lot of people with different views. I had a conversation with an Indian guy yesterday at work, and I was simply telling me a different thing, but it wasn't like that 3 months ago. Yeah.
All right, still staying with you, Shola. I'd like us to focus more on these two contenders. You know, we have said that it's going to be two horse race. Donald Trump, Kamala Harris. Aside their personality, their career track record, political track records, let's speak to what they are giving to the people, or what they are pitching to the people, their policy statements. What would you say is the policy statement of these two, like the driving force of their campaigns, and what people are looking forward to if either of them, or whenever either of them becomes the president?
Yeah, I think that question is for me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, good. This is it. At this point, a lot of Americans are concerned about key issue, just like I said. And unfortunately for the Democrat Party is becoming a resistant party. The personality, the idea of Donald Trump is coming out big, and unfortunately, they've not been able to articulate and explain much about their plans and policy. Kamala Harris have said one or two different on different occasions that his administration, or administration rather, will not be much different from Biden, and she was unable to explain where our plans and policy will meet the American people. Now, on the other side, when you look at Donald Trump, a lot of people believe you don't like Donald Trump, people don't like Donald Trump, but a lot of people believe they add stability in some key areas during the Donald Trump regime. So people want to see the border crisis resolved. People want to see the global role of leadership, especially where the United States of America is coming in. They want to see stability in this principle of multilateralism. Another aspect that is really key to people is economy. And if you look at these three key areas, Donald Trump didn't really perform well when he was there. A lot of people believe there was much stability when Donald Trump was in power than from the 3 years and a half ago, Biden and Harris administration.
Okay, same question for Femi. Let's go to the key policies these two contenders are bringing to the fore, you know, on economy, on security, on border issues, immigration, abortion rights, and all that. What do you think is, you can call the main policy statements these two contenders are using to push themselves for the seat?
Well, you know, the economy is number one on the minds of most Americans. You know, all those surveyed, all those polled, most of them return economy has been the number one thing on their mind. Yeah. Now, if you disaggregate the data and break it down, perhaps you have more women looking at abortion rights and all of that. And I mean, just like Olusola said, the economy is also the reason, one of the reasons alongside immigration, why Donald Trump is strongly in this race. Like you said, most Americans, even those who do not agree with Donald Trump, with his character, with his, you know, disposition, with his, you know, I mean, the man lacks the diplomacies for that office in terms of conduct, in terms of attitude, in terms of his choice of words. It's not I mean, it's not diplomatic. He doesn't speak like a typical politician. He speaks like someone who's outside of the establishment. I mean, who doesn't give a damn about how things are done. But that said, during his 4-year, his 4-year term, most Americans, up until COVID happened, believed that they had a better life in terms of the economy. The American economy was stronger, and international relations wise, United States played a key role in maintaining world peace. Unlike the fact that many people expected that Donald Trump was going to lead the world into World War III, as a matter of fact, during his time, there were no wars. America was not prosecuting any war outside of the country. I mean, that was surprising, but it speaks to what he promised that was going to make America first, was going to, and actually took a lot of very daring decisions that time on the internationals. And that was when he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. That was when Qasem Soleimani, the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran, was killed, and many people felt that was going to tilt the the world into World War III. That was when he also did the Abraham Accords, helping Israel to normalize relations. A lot of Middle Eastern countries that have not had good relations with Israel for several decades. So he made quite a number of consequential diplomatic moves at that time, and perhaps it helped him to maintain world peace. Remember that time also he met, perhaps the first time an American president was meeting the leader of the North Korea. They met at that time. So a lot of people remember those things, and now compare that to what's happening under the Biden-Harris administration in terms of world peace. The Gaza war is in there. There's a threat of a major escalation in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, and could degenerate into a regional war in the country. And on the economic front, like I said earlier on, a lot of Americans look back with fond memories of how things. I've also spoken to people who say, inflation is going through the roof. They can barely afford what they used to afford before. Grocery bills rising astronomically, that their paychecks cannot keep up with what they earn, even including seniors. So that's really a top concern for most Americans. That those who do not like Donald Trump, who ordinarily would not want to vote for him, especially because of how he comported and conducted himself on January 6th, 2021. A lot of people, had issues with him. A lot of people have said if that did not happen that day, perhaps, this election would have been a walkover for him. But notwithstanding, they're saying we need to consider the fact, about our economic power, about our purchasing power. Donald Trump seems to be a better economic manager, but it's also beyond that for many people, women. So if you look at the data, amongst white women, amongst the younger voters, Kamala Harris is doing extremely well. He's doing very well. But amongst white male, even black male, you'll be surprised that Donald Trump is doing very well amongst that demographic also. So it's neck and neck. And these are some of the issues topmost on the mind, and these are also what they've been campaigning with. Donald Trump, he's been hammering on the border crisis. It's called Kamala Harris the border czar. Talked about how she mismanaged and messed up the border issue. He's asking, are you better off 4 years ago? Though, as a political analyst, as a journalist, I feel that would have been a better message for him if he was the traditional politician, if he paid attention to his handlers, if he actually follows the script. I mean, the debate he had with Kamala Harris, it wasn't until when he kept talking about that it seemed to have some traction. But trust Donald Trump not to follow the script, to be the unconventional politician. If he had stayed on that messaging and asking consistently, are you better off 4 years ago? And then all of the controversy. I mean, the controversy at the MSG Arena about, that comedian making a crude joke about Puerto Ricans has dominated conversation in the last few weeks. That shouldn't have happened. But Kamala Harris also, a lot of people are looking at, if Donald Trump comes in, will he become a dictator? Will America descend into, a state where politicians and leaders begin to use state apparatus to oppress opposition? That's what Trump claims the Democrats are doing against him now. There's a new term for it. It's called lawfare, and that's what they've been doing, taking him to the courts over flimsy charges and all of that. So it's a lot. And Kamala Harris also has been campaigning on making America better, also on improving things and building on Joe Biden's records and all of that. And from the decent height of July 21, when she stepped into this race and Biden dropped out, she had huge approval ratings. She had better ratings than Biden, but then she's not been able to see off Donald Trump in the poll. So he's still neck and neck.
All right. Staying with you before I come to Olusola, but let's look at some of the things that have happened, but because of time, we just pick some of them. The assassination attempt on him twice, by the way, there are some persons that feel these have been, staged just to curry favor, people's sympathy. But many persons will say, what does it tend to gain? This is America. If actually it does that, maybe it will be found that at the end of the day, can it really do this? Especially when you're talking about, talking with so many persons that are one side. The war situation in the Middle East is another one in which, Biden is all the way supporting Israel, especially the situation in Gaza, some of the other wars that have sprung up on these matter. There are some population of Americans that feel yes, Israel is our ally, but they feel the support the America as a nation is giving Israel is too much because Israel has gone berserk. That's the language in some quarters. So how is this going to affect? And talk about the people that have been speaking in support. Of course, artists, musicians, entertainers have pitched their tents with different persons, and of course, expectedly so as well, politicians as well. Talking about former President Barack Obama, he has been very, very vocal. In fact, using Nigerian language, he has put it on his head, the way we say it around here. So some of these key issues that has happened up to this time, then the supporters, politicians, entertainers, speaking on behalf of, wherever they have pitched their tents, and some key issues, especially the war in the Middle East. Will this be a decider, or is it just one of those things?
No, of course. I mean, it's part of what will, inform the eventual choice of voters. Both candidates have made, several stops at Michigan, for instance. Michigan hosts the largest concentration of Arab Americans. So a lot of Muslim votes, at stake there. Incidentally, and quite surprisingly, there's a lot of Muslim folks who were also supporting Donald Trump, back there. I think there was one of America's first Muslim mayor or Arab mayor endorsing him in one of the cities there. And there's also a lot of them who are saying because of Biden and Harris's handling of the Gaza war that they're not going to give their vote. In fact, there was a couple of 6 weeks or thereabout ago, I remember there was a conflict at one of these rallies between some black supporters and some Arab supporters of the Democratic Party, when some of the Arab supporters were saying, "Oh, let's go and support some third, candidate." And by the way, there are not just two candidates running in this election.
Right, sure.
For every American election, there are other, the fringe parties and candidates there. So some of them wanted, okay, we can trust Kamala Harris, and we can trust Trump. We'd rather give our votes to a third candidate, and that's essentially wasting your vote for some of them. And then some of those black folks felt, no, these are time. But like you said, the issues are more than the international matter. Like I said about the abortion, and for a lot of Nigerians who wonder and surprised at how Trump is able to still have that much support. And I've also seen debates. I was forced to write an article about these about a day or two ago as to the diaspora voting pattern, especially for Africans and Nigerians. And many people are still surprised why are some Nigerians who are here also supporting Donald Trump or voting Donald Trump? The issues are beyond the issues of immigration. The immigration is topmost even on the minds of Americans. A lot of them are not happy with the border crisis. I've spoken to a number of people, both whites, black, Latinos, and they were surprised at the number of immigrants who are also supporting Donald Trump, because many of them feel we can't continue to have these, from the perspective outside, you feel it should be pro-immigration. But immigration also, if you break it down, comes in different, forms. And this is also part of what is informing other people. I've seen people who are legally, here, who legally migrated here, will say, can you imagine that those who come in illegally enjoy the state more than those who come in legally? I mean, these are issues that people outside may not understand. There are certain benefits that even American citizens do not have access to or do not enjoy that illegal immigrants enjoy. I did a presentation last December, and I found out that for the month of December alone, close to 300,000 people came in illegally through the southern border. This is one of what is, you know, constituted a very big challenge for Kamala Harris and Biden. A lot of Americans saying we can sustain this. Some of the cities, especially democratic cities, are overwhelmed. Facilities overwhelmed. There's been rise in crime. There's been also controversy as to the level of the crime. Trump keeps saying they are trying to play down the crime numbers. The Democrats are saying, I mean, it's a lie. The immigrants are not responsible for it. And some say, okay, I mean, if you want to come legally and then apply as you should
Right.
so all of that. So there's also those who feel there are issues about LGBT, there are issues about parental rights, all of those issues, form what will inform the decision of the voter eventually.
Right, and quite key. Maybe if time permits, I will talk about some of those things that we are trying to find a countdown and draw, if actually we can, a comparison with what happens there, because some of those things, parental rights, by the way, that is fast looking like is being lost in some guys in the U.S. Is what some persons are talking about, and even some of those are people that are there, to say those things being categorized as being extreme, the abortion right issues as well, and some of those, sexual preference and tendencies in which would ordinarily around here raise eyebrows, maybe, if time permits us. But let me come to Olusola, but let's talk about the state right now. Of course, we have the blue state, the red state, in which they know where their tendency is, where these states are linked. But talk about the swing states. How will they are the traditional, just like I said, the blue and the red states, but the swing state, will it be a key decider? That's why they are called, swing states, that whoever win this state, maybe stand a very great chance. We're talking about Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and the likes. What role will they still maintain that deciding factor, in your opinion?
Thank you for that. I love that question. But in my opinion, there's still going to be a major decision factor, rather, because it still all boils down to their outcome. These are states that make their own choice of who they want to be, the president to be. So the outcome of those states are very important in the outcome of the U.S. election. But nevertheless, going back to or by what Olufemi was explaining, I think presently in the US, if there's any conventional method or system that produce results, it still don't matter at the moment. People are still presently undecisive. Tomorrow is election day, and I can tell you at the moment, people are not still tilting to one side or the other decisively. A lot of people are still going through that vacillation period in their mind. And I also believe it's going to be the outcome from those key swing states as well. Because if you look at it, the issue of the US is more general at the moment and unbelievable. People are switching interest because politics is about interest. People are beginning to embrace Donald Trump. That is what you wouldn't believe could happen some time ago. I watched some interviews this afternoon, and some people are still of opinion that if another candidate come from a Republican, that they wouldn't take to consider him, that they will have preferred Mike Pence or Rubio or other guys in the Republican or Mitt Romney instead of Kamala Harris. Now, it's all about the projection they have about Donald Trump, how they found him to be, in quotes, a crazy person, but not totally incompetent. And that is where the decision coming now from the swing states. They're looking at who is going to be competent to turn the table around. The Abraham Accord in the Middle East will have been the best tool to approach this recent escalation in Gaza, Israel, Ukraine is a different factor on its own. But the Americans are experiencing a different world that it wasn't there before. Rights are being rearranged, and all this started under 3.5 years of Biden-Harris administration. So from the swing states, nobody want to see all of that happen. This is a general concern, and I also believe those states now can wield more power and influence to make that decision if they want to go for Donald Trump, because it's a general concern. And I would like to raise this. I'm not here to report, and I'm not here to throw support behind, but just like it's my opinion.
Yeah.
From my experience, I remember 2021, I was in New Jersey. I was living in New York, but I work in New Jersey. And I have my affiliation with so many of these United Nations agencies, and the military exit, the U.S. military exit from Afghanistan was a disaster, chaos. Now, contrary to what the media portray, I was given a role as one of the officials, like the welfare officials at the UN camp at Doburg in New Jersey, and I saw not just through the border, flying them down to the US soil, the amount of influx of Afghanistan families, children that Biden brought to the United States. And I mean, they all go to some of the sanctuary states or cities, and most of them now are being given more preference, privilege than the people that are working and paying tax to take care of these people. So this is a concern, whether I'm in Illinois or whether I'm in
Olusola,
Nebraska.
if I may butt in, the US has always played this big brother role, isn't it? Why is it a problem now?
It's a problem now because, see, let me tell you how it's a problem. If I'm an American, I mean by birth, I'm going to see things differently. It's funny when you have strangers invade your territory, all in the name of immigration. And let me let you know one thing, we're humans, we live on earth, we have scarce resources. You cannot continue to have influx of things into an existing system. It's going to be weighed out eventually. There's still going to be, if you stretch everything, there's going to be a limit to how much you can accommodate. So the US system, to me, I believe, have been infiltrated with different ideologies from both left and right.
All right.
Different people coming to move agenda and influence the system in the US. But what the Donald Trump supporters are viewing now is how we want to take back our country. Now, the white Americans, I mean, non-Latinos, non-Hispanics, are still about 57%. They are still the most populated people in the US. And most of them, all of them, if not all of them, most of them have the capacity and rights to vote. Now, compared to the black community, that a lot of people still have to deal with felony DUI cases that do not put them or place them in a position to vote. Now, even the Latino community, even all other racial groups in America. Now, but these whites, however way you describe them, that believe we are the one to uphold the core of American ideals, I think they are waking up. And most of them are dominant in all these swing states.
All right.
All right, so Shola, would you say that, I mean, away from that particular issue, let's talk about the interference of foreign nations in this particular election, especially the campaigns. There are news in some quarters that countries like China, Iran, Russia, add some influence in the build-up to the election, propagating misinformation, disinformation in favor of a particular candidate. I'd like you to, debunk or confirm that, if that's actually happening.
Definitely, that's happening, and that's definitely going to happen. This is the United States of America election. Every parties are involved, all countries are involved, and the China, the Russia, they are not just involved, they are interested, they have major stakes. And I also believe, if you look at the build-up of regional wars and a lot of things going on, a lot of things are on pause because people are waiting for the outcome of this US election. It's going to take a different turn, depends on the candidate that emerges the winner of the election. But the way election hacking or influence or manipulation is to me is quite different. It all depends on the United States of America, the system, and the way they are able to counter whatever interference is coming from the international community. But I want to let you know definitely there's going to be an interference into the election. You don't have to even talk China. It could be any small major countries that are used. Any one of those. It could be anywhere the base is set up, but all over the world, everyone is involved in this U.S. election.
All right, moving over to Femi. Now, there are people that say that we might have a repeat of what happened in the year 2020 if Donald Trump does not clinch that seat. See, because they say Donald Trump is not contesting against Kamala Harris, but against election fraud. And one or two times, Donald Trump has made reference to what happened in 2020 and has not totally conceded defeat. He still feels he was robbed of that election in that year. Do you think we might have a replay of that if Donald Trump, doesn't get the ticket, doesn't get the seat this time?
But I mean, it's a major worry for many people. Donald Trump is evidently a bad loser. Like I said earlier on, perhaps this election would have been easier for him if January 6, 2021 didn't happen. His messaging, his narratives have been around the fact that the election integrity is compromised. He and those on his side have been arguing, and to some extent, makes sense for voter ID to be introduced in voting. America is such a weird place. You look at some things that should be the norm elsewhere in the world that are not the norm here. For instance, about that voting, a lot of Democrats have pushed back about introducing voter ID because they believe the Republicans have argued that non-citizens are voting. It's not like in Britain where you have Commonwealth citizens voting, allowed to vote. And that's not the situation. If you're not a citizen, you are not expected to vote in the election. There's been one or two confirmed instances of non-citizens. I think there was one case of a Chinese guy that was reported in the media, that voted and that was not supposed to vote. But many other Democrats believe this is not an issue. But Republicans and Donald Trump have crafted messages and messaging and narratives that there's an effort, a plan to compromise the integrity of this election. And some analysts believe he's just trying to prepare the ground for that kind of, denial that happened in 2020. But it must also be said here that the media, I'm a journalist. I'm a media researcher. The media narrative, the media reporting of both candidates have been starkly different. The media is maybe understandably pro-Biden, except for the right-wing conservative media. Many of the media, most of the Trump news are negative. I mean, Jude is also very conservative anyway. There's a lot of negatives around him. He talks off script, he makes some very controversial remarks. But then if you check, sometimes some of them will need to come back and correct some assertions they've made and all of that. There's this different standard that he's held to, and that maybe the other candidate is not held to. But the kind of messaging narrative is pushing, it suggests that he's preparing his candidate and not to accept. And that's also a major concern for many people who say democracy is under threat. He should do the needful. If he loses this election, he should just go away peacefully. Donald Trump has not accepted or agreed to that. He's always saying, well, if the election is conducted peacefully, there'll be no issues. But then he's not as you would expect of a statesman or a politician to say, okay, I'll take this, whichever result comes out, I'll be fine by it. But he's always giving a caveat. If the election is conducted peacefully and with integrity intact, I'll be fine. So, and another thing I should mention, is the fact that the Democratic Party, and Olusola made reference to it the other time, the Democratic Party seems to be having lots of issues connecting with male voters, white male voters, and in some instances, black male voters. You remember Obama had to make a complaint about the fact that black male are not supporting Kamala Harris like they did for him. And that also led to sort of a backlash at some point. It speaks to what some have also described as an over-concentration of the Democratic Party, and indeed the liberal left, on women, and some sort of delegitimization, in quote, of the male gender. And it's also part of what Donald Trump has hammered on. I'm going to take men out of women's sports. That resonates with a lot of some people, who saying, why should we have male? But some of these ideologies, some of these liberal ideologies are also not resonating well with male, whether white or black. Is one of the reasons, alongside economy, that the Democratic Party is finding it hard. I mean, this election should be a walkover for them, considering the kind of character and the kind of person that Donald Trump is.
All right, with a benefit of hindsight, how would you measure the quality of the contenders that we have now? I mean, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Some people are of the opinion that these two contenders are not really the best America should have offered the people at this time. So I'd like you to, compare these two candidates to previous candidates that we've had.
Well, I mean, if you ask me personally, so I should say that before you can rise to the top in American politics, you must have some stuff. You must have the gift of the gab. You must be able to articulate, your points very well. The American electoral process, political process involves lots of debate at every level, whether it's school board election, at the local, at the county level, everywhere. A lot of, you need to be able to articulate your point. But that said, if you ask me personally, this is not the best that American society can produce. I mean, take your mind back to Obama, Mitt Romney, the quality of the debate, even Obama, McCain, the quality of the debate, the quality of what was put us. You clearly know that time that right versus left in terms of ideology, conservative, liberal ideologies, right here, right now. In fact, some of the you'll be surprised that the waters are muddied, sort of. It's the lines are getting blurred, because you'll be surprised some very conservative ideals are even pushed by the left. Some very liberal ideals are also being pushed by the right. There's some, I mean, there's still the principles are still the same, but then it's not as clear as it used to be, and the kind of debate. There's a lot of violent rhetoric, virtual, and all of that that's not been there before. American politics is very, very tough. You throw your heart into the ring, there'll be research done on you, there'll be checks, and what you said 20 years ago will be brought back to use against you, but not even to this level. The kind of hate, the kind of Trump surviving to assassination attempt, Trump claims that it's because of the messaging that the left has used about him being a threat to democracy, and that's why they've actually encouraged some people to want to go after him. So I personally, I mean, I may be wrong, but I feel that this is not the best American society can actually produce.
All right, same question to you, Olusola. I'd like you to give your opinion on that, the quality of the candidates we have now compared to previous candidates or contenders that the U.S. has produced.
Oh, yeah, sure. I want to agree with my brother. This is not the best we can have. Just like I said, the election or electoral process will provide option. And when our option is narrowed down to two people, we have to make choice between those. But the outcome is already controlled. So we are going to choose between two different people. And you're not going to have alternative to have the top candidates to pick, just like the way the electoral system operates. Nobody understands or knows about the independent party. And also, when they're still going to end up with either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. But looking at the difference between the two of them, the strength, just like they said, the SWOT analysis, that's one thing that triggered Trump followership and support in the recent time, because Trump is not a person who comes with the best character, but people seems to figure out in him the capacity they need for a change. The time is for a leader, not just a political figure, to take over.
Yeah.
In contrast, Kamala explained very, very well that our tenure may not really be different from the predecessor she had.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at it also, she's not coming with much equity. She's not coming with much capitals that require for an American president. It's a tough system. They're going to scrutinize you. That's what Donald Trump have been able to overcome and survive for so many years. And that's quite funny. Just like Olufemi said, America is a very weird place. You'll be so surprised. As much as we have a very strong system here, a lot of funny things still happen. But the system is much stronger to swallow everything and figure everything.
We should go. Yeah. Let me take you up, and I think that's a parting shot. Would you like to make a call on this one? Kamala or Donald?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay, that if I'm going to vote, who am I going to vote for?
Who do you think possibly might emerge?
I cannot say.
All right.
I don't want to get that. I cannot say. It's still very, very
tight, right?
Unsure.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me come to Femi. But I will ask you the same question, but I want to 30 seconds. If you can draw a parallel, the countdown to these elections. If it's in Nigeria, what could have been happening? Tearing of posters, destruction of billboards, talking down religion, ethnicity, and do we have that same semblance over there? And is there anything we can learn in 30 seconds, Femi?
Well, I mean, just like Olusola said, there are a lot of weird things happening, and you would see to some extent some of the things happen also in the third world countries. I've seen instances where people, destroy. I mean, not the big billboards that you have in Nigeria. Maybe just a small sidewalk, posters that people maybe I don't just like this person, I just take it off, but not on the scale that you witness in Nigeria. Schools will not be. The nation will not be shut down on election day. Yeah, I mean that should be stressed. Some schools. In my state, schools will be shut down because most of the schools are polling centers where people will go. So for the safety of the kids, they'll be at home tomorrow. I mean, my kids will be here. But otherwise, the nation will move. People will go. I'll be going to work. People will go to work. Everybody will work. Not like in Nigeria when you shut down the economy, for that period. So no tearing of posters, no police arresting opponents a night before election. No militarization. At most, every polling station we have just a police officer just to oversee things. It may not even happen in some other states. The Connecticut, here in Connecticut, they have a police officers in almost every polling unit, but they're not carrying arms, not squads of arms to the teeth. Soldiers combined, DSS, NSA, what have you, patrolling the street. That's different. I mean, that's not going to happen. And as part of the call, I know you're pressed for time. Just like Olusola said, it will be foolhardy to stick your neck out at this time. We can go either way. It's good to prepare your mind. It could be a Trump presidency, it could be a Kamala Harris presidency. You can go either way. But I feel personally that this should have been a walkover for Kamala, but for those issues. And it should also be a walkover for the Republican Party if it wasn't Donald Trump. Because on the strength of performance 4 years against what happened during Republican, it was COVID that messed up Donald Trump. That guy would have won the second term. COVID messed them up in terms of performance. Olusola repeatedly talked about competence. He has a questionable character. He had issues, convicted felon, but in terms of competency, many Americans feel it was a better man to lead the country and, as they say, make America great again. So it can go either way.
Would like to thank you especially Femi Olanipekun, journalist and political analyst, for your analysis, your takes, your submissions on the show this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And of
Thank you for
course,
having me.
to Olusola Adewumi, thank you also, United Nations Association Chicago City Ambassador. Thank you for your presence on the show, your analysis, and your submissions. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you.
All right, and we wish the United States of America the best, and like they say it, may the best man or woman
in this case
win.
Yeah.
All right, that's the show this morning. Thank you for riding with us. We make a return tomorrow for another interesting edition of Morning Spring. It will be election day tomorrow in the United States of America, where the people will go all out to vote and put in who they want to, go on with the affairs of the state for the next 4 years. Until tomorrow, my name is Evelyn Ohiolei. Have yourself a good day.
Okay, I like the way you say until tomorrow your name will be Evelyn. So after tomorrow your name will
It
be
might
what?
change. You never can tell.
All right, trust us to come with a very robust edition tomorrow. We'll be having live guests in the studio to take us further in this conversation and what it means for the rest of the world. Femi Ojo's money. See you tomorrow.